Welcome to this presentation developed by the Opticians of Manitoba with the support of the Office of the Manitoba Fairness Commissioner. This presentation will explain the registration and licensing process for internationally educated opticians in Manitoba. As you view this presentation, it will be helpful to refer to the resource list accompanying this presentation for links to the important resources that we will refer to. This resource list can be found on the Opticians of Manitoba website under the Resources for Internationally Educated Professionals. In this presentation, I'll give you some background information on the field of opticianry, as well as on the Opticians of Manitoba. I'll then explain the registration and licensing process for internationally educated opticians in Manitoba. Then, I'll respond to the following questions in this presentation. What is the role of the Opticians of Manitoba? What is an optician in Manitoba? What are the eligibility requirements to practice as an optician? What is the Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition, or PLAR process with the OOM? And what is the exam? What is the registration and licensing process? And what are the potential outcomes of this process? Finally, what training programs and other resources are available to support internationally educated opticians in Manitoba? Let's begin with discussing the Opticians of Manitoba, or OOM for short, and their role within the field of opticianry in Manitoba. Opticianry is a regulated health profession in Canada. Each province and territory has a regulatory body that administers registration and licensing requirements. In Manitoba, the regulatory body is the Opticians of Manitoba, or OOM for short. The Opticians of Manitoba regulates the profession of opticianry in Manitoba. Opticianry is a self-governing profession in Manitoba. The OOM sets standards of practice to ensure that all Manitobans receive safe and competent care. By law, all persons who practice as opticians and contact lens opticians in Manitoba must be registered and licensed members of the OOM. The Opticians of Manitoba has three core functions: registration and licensing, standards, and complaints resolution. In this presentation, we will be focusing on the first role, registration and licensing. What is a licensed optician? As I stated, everyone who practices as an optician or contact lens optician in Manitoba must be registered and licensed members of the OOM. But what is a licensed optician in Manitoba? Licensed opticians have to meet standards of practice and training, commit to ongoing education, and are held to these standards by the Opticians of Manitoba. In Manitoba, opticians require training, skills, and experience that is different from optometrists. Even if an applicant has a university degree in optometry or has worked as an optometrist in another country, he or she must complete the OOM registration and licensing process to practice opticianry in Manitoba. Internationally educated applicants may even require additional training to acquire a license in opticianry. What is the scope of service of a licensed optician in Manitoba? Opticians are essential members of the healthcare team and contribute to the health and well-being of Manitobans. Their scope of service includes the following tasks. Licensed opticians interpret prescriptions prepared by ophthalmologists and optometrists. They discuss and recommend options to meet patients' visual needs. Opticians also fit, supply, prepare, and verify optical devices, including contact lenses, glasses, sunglasses, low vision aids, and prosthetic ocular devices. They adjust, adapt, and dispense optical devices. They instruct on the proper care and maintenance of the optical device. And finally, they evaluate and monitor the performance of the optical device over time. For more information on the responsibilities of opticians in Manitoba, please review the definitions and responsibilities of an optician, which is available on the OOM website. For more information on the Opticians of Manitoba and the practice of licensed opticians in Manitoba, please visit the OOM website at www.opticiansofmanitoba.ca. While on the OOM website, review the site thoroughly as it contains a lot of valuable information. There are a number of resources that will be helpful to you as you gain an understanding of the role of the OOM, the work of licensed opticians in Manitoba, and finally, the registration and licensing process for internationally educated opticians. It will be particularly useful to visit the Internationally Educated Opticians page of this website, located on the right, to review the application and registration process for internationally educated opticians, as well as to find all the resources needed for this process. The information shared in this presentation reinforces the information available on this website, so we encourage you as an internationally educated applicant to use both as you move through the registration and licensing process. At this point, you should have a better understanding about the role of the Opticians of Manitoba and the practice of opticianry in Manitoba. Prior to beginning the registration and licensing process with the Opticians of Manitoba, each candidate should complete the following tasks to determine their eligibility to practice as an optician in Manitoba and to prepare for the registration and licensing process. First, I'll provide a general overview of these tasks, and then we'll look at each task in detail. In order to prepare for the registration process with the OOM, you must complete the following tasks: immigrate to Manitoba, review available resources, and improve your English language proficiency. Let's discuss each of these in more detail. Manitoba receives many skilled immigrants each year. Whenever possible, we want to support the process of transition back into the profession for which you were previously trained. If you were trained as an optician in your home country, you may be eligible to practice as a licensed optician in Manitoba. However, before you begin the registration and licensing process with the OOM, contact your immigration office to ensure you meet the requirements to immigrate to Manitoba. The next task to complete prior to beginning the registration process is to review all available resources. Opticians who work in Manitoba are required to comply with government regulations and standards that apply to providing opticianry services to patients. We therefore recommend that you review the following before you begin the registration process: the Personal Health Information Act, the OOM Code of Ethics, and the OOM Professional Standards of Practice. These resources are available on the OOM website. There are no English language requirements for registration and licensing with the OOM. However, it is recommended that you have a Canadian language benchmark level of 7 or higher in all 4 skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. This will increase your chance of success with the registration and licensing process, as the OOM conducts the registration and licensing process in English only. Prior to arrival in Manitoba and registration with the OOM, use the Government of Manitoba's online resources to help you practice your English from your home computer. English Online's program offers one-on-one support online, as well as many other resources to support your language development. Additionally, CBC Manitoba's English program also has many valuable resources for independent study. Then, when you arrive in Manitoba, assess your language proficiency and enroll in a free English course in Manitoba. A free English language test is available for all immigrants through funding from the Government of Manitoba. This test is called the Canadian Language Benchmark Placement Test. This test is provided by the Winnipeg English Language Assessment and Referral Centre, or WELARC for short. Your test results will help you to determine if your English language skills are likely to increase your chance of success with the registration and licensing process with the OOM. Your test results will also help you determine whether you need to take English language classes to reach your career goals. WellArc can refer you to free English language classes. Now let's examine the application, registration, and licensing requirements and processes for registering and becoming licensed as an internationally educated optician in Manitoba. First, I'll provide a general overview of the process, and then we'll look at the details of each step. You must be licensed to practice opticianry in Manitoba. To practice opticianry without a license is a legal offense and can result in disciplinary action or fines. To become licensed to practice opticianry in Manitoba, you must be a Canadian citizen or landed immigrant with permanent resident status, or hold a valid work visa, and complete the registration and licensing process outlined in this presentation and on the OOM website. You must complete the registration and licensing process below to become licensed with the Opticians of Manitoba. Step 1 is to complete the Prior Learning Assessment Recognition. This process takes about 6 to 12 weeks. The next step is to write the national exam. This is offered through the National Association of Canadian Optician Regulators, or NACOR for short. Step 3 is registration with the OOM. The final step in this process is licensing with the OOM. It can take 4 to 6 weeks to review your license to practice once the application is approved. Now let's examine each step in detail. Step 1 is the Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition process. This process is conducted by the OOM and has 7 sub-steps. They are as follows. First, you must submit an application for Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition. Next, this application will be reviewed and the OOM will provide you with recommendations. Next, the OOM will complete a gap analysis of your education as well as an interview. Finally, the OOM will make a decision and will share this decision with you. If necessary, the decision can be reviewed or appealed. As I mentioned, the first sub-step of the Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition process is that you must apply for the Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition. The Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition process requires that you provide information about your training and work experience. If you do not have these documents and have to obtain them from another country, it may take up to 3 months to complete the following tasks. You must complete these 4 tasks to apply for PLAR. Task number 1 is to compile the required documents. Task number 2 is to complete the application for PLAR form. Task number 3 is to pay your application fee. And task number 4 is to deliver the required documents. As I mentioned, in order to apply for the Prior Learning Assessment Recognition process, you must compile your required documents. The following documents are required for your application for PLAR. Your original certificate of completion from your educational institution or a notarized copy. Curriculum details that describe the content of your course or education. For example, course outlines, course descriptions, and syllabi. The information must include a list of subject areas, a description of skills taught, the number of credit hours in theoretical education, and the number of credit hours in practical education. A resume that details your work history and experience since graduation. Include your job title, start date and end date, business name, business address including the country, and the tasks you performed. The letters of reference from all previous employers and current employers related to opticianry. The letters of reference should match the work history and experience described on your resume. Each letter of reference must include your job title, your start date and end date, a description of the tasks you performed, and a statement about your job performance. Your employer must sign the letter and mail it directly to the OOM. Dispensing experience and fitting forms completed by your supervisors. This form is available on the OOM website. Provide one dispensing experience and fitting forms for each place of employment. Letter of good standing if you are currently a member of a regulatory body. The letter of good standing must include your name and address of the regulatory body, your membership category such as eyeglass or contact lenses, your status such as active or inactive, the expiry date of your current license, and information on any disciplinary action taken against you. Information regarding previous applications for registration form, if you have applied for registration in any other province or territory in Canada. Examination marks if you have successfully completed an optician re-exam in Canada or any other country. If you have successfully completed an optician re-exam in Canada or any other country, you must provide the name of the certifying agency, the date of the exam, the mark achieved, and the original exam certificate. A criminal record search report. Complete a criminal record check and provide the criminal record search certificate to the OOM. A vulnerable sector screening is not required. Contact the Winnipeg Police Service or your local police station for details on the process and fees. The Winnipeg Police Service can complete a criminal record check for anyone living in Manitoba. You may complete the application online at winnipeg.ca. English language proficiency test results. Benchmark 7 is recommended. Demonstrating English language proficiency is not a requirement. However, you will accelerate the registration process if you can provide the items below. If you have completed an English as an additional language course, please provide the name of the course, the level completed, and the original transcript. If you have completed a Canadian language benchmark placement test in English, please provide the original transcript. Once you have compiled all required documents, you can then complete the application for PLAR form available on the OOM website. The third task involved in the application for PLAR is to prepare your application fee of $340. This includes the document review, interview, and recommendations review. Finally, mail or hand deliver all required documents with your application form and application fee to the Opticians of Manitoba. The address is included on this slide. Once you have submitted your PLAR application package, the OOM will complete these steps and review your application for PLAR. Ensure you have provided the required documents. Ensure you have paid your application fee. Review your credentials evaluation report to determine if your education meets Manitoba standards. And review your resume to assess your work experience and skills. Following review of your application for PLAR, the OOM will send you a letter that provides you with one of 3 possible recommendations. If your application is incomplete, the OOM will instruct you to provide the missing content. If your education and experience qualify you, the OOM will recommend that you complete a gap analysis. If your education and experience do not meet Manitoba standards, the OOM will advise you to complete additional training before you submit another application for PLAR. The OOM may recommend a specific training program or institution. The gap analysis is completed for all candidates whose education and experience appears to meet Manitoba standards. The objective of the gap analysis is to determine if there are any gaps in your education, if you have any areas of weakness in knowledge, and if you require any additional training. There are 2 sections to the gap analysis. All applicants must complete Section 1, Eyeglasses. Contact lens opticians must complete Section 1, Eyeglasses and Section 2, Contact lenses. You are not required to complete Section 2 if you will not be applying for a license to dispense contact lenses. You may complete each section on separate dates or both sections on the same day, and fees are due no later than the day of your assessment. Please note that the gap analysis is conducted in English only. You will be supervised as you answer questions using an online computer program. If you live in Manitoba, gap analysis will take place at the office. If you do not live in Manitoba, the will arrange for a gap analysis to take place at your current location under the supervision of an invigilator. Up-to-date information on fees, dates, and other details are available online on the website. All candidates who complete a gap analysis must also complete an interview. The OOM will schedule an interview with you within 30 days of your gap analysis. You will be interviewed by 3 licensed opticians representing the OOM Registration Committee and trained in PLAR interviewing by the National Association of Canadian Optician Regulators. The interview will usually take place in person at the OOM office, but it may be by remote video conferencing if secure conferencing arrangements can be made. The interview is conducted in English only. If your gap analysis revealed a gap in your education or a weakness in any area of knowledge, your interviewers will ask questions about these areas. Your answers will help the OOM Registration Committee make a decision about whether you are eligible for registration and licensing, or need to complete the exam, or need to complete additional training before you can write the exam. The OOM Registration Committee will assess the following to decide if you are eligible for registration and licensing: your required documents, your gap analysis results, and your interview findings. The OOM will mail you a decision letter with one of the following decisions. 1. You have demonstrated enough knowledge and skills to be eligible for registration and licensing. You are not required to complete Step 2, exam. You may proceed to Step 3, registration. 2. You did not demonstrate enough knowledge and skills to be eligible for registration and licensing. However, you have demonstrated enough knowledge and skills to be eligible for examination. You may proceed to Step 2, exam. 3. You did not demonstrate enough knowledge and skills to be eligible for registration and licensing. The Registration Committee believes that without further training, you would not be able to succeed if you challenged the exam. The Registration and Licensing Committee believes that if you complete a bridging program or courses, then you will acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to succeed when you challenge the exam. Therefore, the OOM will send you this decision and information about what training is required. 4. You did not demonstrate enough knowledge and skills to be eligible for registration and examination. You must complete an entire opticianry education program in eyeglasses, contact lenses, or both at an educational institution that is approved by the OOM. When the program is completed, you may proceed to Step 2, exam. Please note that you will receive detailed information within the decision letter of the results of your online gap analysis and interview. In the case of decision number 3, an applicant must complete additional training in the form of a bridging program in order to be eligible to write the exam. What is a bridging program? A bridging program is an educational program that focuses on filling the gaps in your specific areas of weakness. If applicable, the OOM will instruct you to complete a specific bridging program or courses provided by the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology. You may complete the bridging program or courses through online distance learning. Online distance learning allows you to complete a course at home on your computer rather than attend classes at an educational institution. You may also be required to complete specific practical experience supervised by a licensed optician approved by the OOM Registration Committee. Once you complete the bridging program or courses, you may proceed to Step 2, Exam. Applicants have the right to access and review their records. This includes your detailed assessment records. If you wish to see your records, please send your request in writing to the Registrar of the Opticians of Manitoba. Furthermore, once you receive the decision from the OOM, you have a right to either review or appeal the decision. Applicants have the right to appeal the decision made by the OOM. This means to have their application assessed again. Appeal opportunities are not restricted to issues of procedure. If you wish to do so, you must write a letter and send it within 30 days of the date of your decision letter. Your letter must include your name, your address, the date of your decision letter, the decision, and a statement indicating that you wish to appeal or request a review and your reason. Send your letter to the Registrar at the Opticians of Manitoba. The address is included on this slide. The OOM Registration Appeals Committee will review the decision. The committee can change the decision. The committee's final decision is not subject to further review or appeal by the OOM. The reviews and appeals process takes 4 to 6 weeks to complete. We have now reviewed all components of step number 1 in the registration and licensing process for internationally educated opticians within Manitoba. To review, these steps are application for PLAR, review of your PLAR application by the OOM, recommendations provided by the OOM based on the results of your PLAR, the completion of a gap analysis, an interview with the OOM, the decision by the OOM, which may require you to complete additional training or a bridging program, and finally, reviews and appeals, which are an optional step within this process. Following Step 1, you must then complete Step 2, which is the national exam offered through the National Association of Canadian Optician Regulators. Step 3 is registration with the OOM. The final step in this process is licensing with the OOM. Let's discuss these 3 steps in more detail. The second step in the registration and licensing process for internationally educated opticians is writing the national exam. There are 2 national exams. Optical Sciences 1, the eyeglass exam for opticians, and Optical Sciences 2, the Advanced Practice Contact Lens exam for contact lens opticians. To become an optician, you must write the eyeglass exam. To become a contact lens optician, you must write both the eyeglass exam and the Advanced Practice Contact Lens exam. These exams are administered by the National Accreditation Committee of Optician Regulators, or NACOR. Please visit nacor.ca to view information about the examination, the candidate's handbook, the dates and venues of the exam, and the exam application form. Please contact NACOR to arrange to write the exam. If your decision letter stated that you must complete a bridging program or courses or an optician re-education program, you must provide the OOM with the original certificate to prove that you have successfully completed the required courses or programs. You must provide the original certificate in order to become eligible to write the national exams. Once you pass the national exam, you are eligible to complete Step 3, registration with the OOM. Applicants may apply for registration with the OOM using one of these options. Download the application for registration form, or contact the OOM to request an application for registration form. The application for registration form asks you to document your name, contact information, and education. The OOM requires this information to place your name on the register. The register is a list of all people who have proven that they have the training and experience required to practice opticianry in Manitoba. The OOM will place your name on the register within 6 to 8 weeks of receiving your application. You will only be required to register with the OOM once. The registration fee is on the OOM website. The OOM will mail you a certificate of registration to confirm that your name is on this register. Once your name is on the register, you are eligible to complete Step 4, licensing. There are 3 parts to this process: completing the application, receiving a response from the OOM, and receiving your license, which must be renewed every year. You require a license to legally practice opticianry in Manitoba. You must complete these 4 tasks to apply for a license. The first task is to compile the required documents. You must provide proof of having a minimum of $1 million in errors and omissions professional liability insurance. You may have this insurance coverage through your future employer, or you may acquire the insurance free of charge if you choose to become a member of the Opticians Association of Canada. If you apply to become a member of the Opticians Association of Canada, or OAC, your insurance will take effect on the day that your license application is approved. If you will be covered by your future employer's insurance, you must include a copy of the employer's certificate of insurance with your license application. If you apply to become a member of the OAC, you must submit a copy of your receipt for application for OAC membership with your license application, and submit a copy of the OAC insurance certificate, which is emailed to you on the day that your license is approved and your insurance comes into effect. The second requirement is a criminal record search report. Submit an application for a criminal records check to the police service. Provide the original criminal record search report that you receive from the police to the OOM. A vulnerable sector screening is not required. The Winnipeg Police Service can complete a criminal record check for anyone living in Manitoba. Contact the Winnipeg Police Service or your local police station now to begin the process, as the criminal record search report can take several weeks to receive. The OOM will accept an original criminal record search report that is up to 5 years old. You do not need to submit an original report to the OOM if you submitted it during your application for PLAR. Finally, provide 2 original passport photos with the verification signed on the back of each photo. Once you have compiled all your required documents, you must complete the application form, which is available on the OOM website. Next, you must pay the license fee. The latest fees are provided on the OOM website. You may pay by one of the following methods: money order, credit card, or a certified personal check or a business check. Please make the checks payable to the Opticians of Manitoba. To pay by telephone, please call the OOM at 204-222-8404. Finally, mail or hand deliver all required documents with your application form and license fee to the OOM. The address for the Opticians of Manitoba can be found on this slide. Do not send documents by fax or email. Original signatures are required. The OOM will return all original documents submitted for PLAR, such as your transcripts, by registered mail. All details, fees, and dates are updated on the OOM website. We recommend you check there for the most current information. Within 4 to 6 weeks of receiving your application for license, the OOM will mail you a letter of acceptance, a receipt for your license fee, and your license. Your license is a card that you must wear or prominently display in your dispensary. The license proves that you are licensed to practice opticianry in Manitoba for that year. Your license expires on December 31st of every year. In September of each year, the OOM will mail you a letter to remind you that you must renew your license. The letter will include the renewal deadline, renewal form, and renewal fee. If you fail to renew your license, you will no longer hold a valid license, and you can no longer legally practice opticianry in Manitoba. To review, there are 4 steps involved in the registration and licensing for internationally educated opticians in Manitoba. Step 1 is to complete the prior learning assessment recognition. The second step is to write the national exam. Step 3 is registration with the OOM. Step 4 is licensing with the OOM. Once this is complete, it is important to continue to develop as a professional. The Opticians of Manitoba have a system to ensure that opticians maintain current knowledge and continue their professional development, called Maintenance of Competency. What is Maintenance of Competency, or MOC? To ensure current knowledge, all opticians and contact lens opticians must earn a minimum number of MOC credits in a 3-year period cycle. To earn credits, you must participate in MOC activities such as performing vision screening at a school, supervising eyeglass fittings, completing a first aid course, attending the Annual General Meeting, or AGM, attending a relevant lecture, or completing an online course in an opticianry-related topic. Completion of MOC credits is required for renewal of your license. You must have a valid license to legally practice opticianry in Manitoba. See Maintenance of Competency on the website for full details. You can find this information under the Registration and Licensing navigation option. Finally, let's examine some resources that are essential for opticians to review regarding standards of practice and legislation for opticians in Manitoba. The Opticians of Manitoba is responsible for setting minimum standards of practice with respect to business and dispensing practices, staff supervision, client management, and records management. The professional standards of practice serve the following purposes. They provide the public with clear guidelines for the quality of care they should receive from an optician. They provide practitioners with clear expectations for upholding the requirements of professional practice set by the Opticians of Manitoba. And finally, they provide the Opticians of Manitoba with benchmarks by which it may investigate complaints and the criteria by which it will judge whether disciplinary actions and/or remedial actions is required. More information about the professional standards of practice can be found within the Professional Standards of Practice document. It's important to read this document thoroughly. This document is linked on the Opticians of Manitoba website and within the resource list accompanying this presentation. The Code of Ethics for OOM explains opticians' general ethical practice, duty to the public, duty to patients, duty to the profession, and duty to colleagues. More information about the Code of Ethics can be found within the Professional Standards of Practice document. As an optician, you should have a very clear understanding of both the Code of Ethics and the professional standards for this profession, so we encourage you to review this in detail. Manitoba has an Apology Act. Patients and their families expect to be told when something has happened that has harmed them or had the potential to harm them. Patients have a right to know this information. Informing them honestly and fully is the right thing to do. Along with additional support resources, the Apology Act explains the difference between apologizing and admitting liability, the reason for apology legislation, the importance of an apology for the patient, family, and practitioner, as well as how to apologize. You can review the following resources to learn more about the Apology Act. These resources are included on the resource list on the Opticians of Manitoba website. The Apology Act information sheet provides a very useful starting point for information on the Apology Act. The Apology Act itself is linked in full on the Opticians of Manitoba website. Finally, the Manitoba Institute for Patient Safety website has additional resources that relate to this Act. The Personal Information Protection and Electronics Document Act sets out the rules for how an organization or a business may collect, use, or disclose personal information. The Personal Information Protection and Electronics Document Act also gives individuals the right to access and request correction of the personal information these organizations may have collected about them. More information about this Act can be found on the resource list accompanying this presentation on the Opticians of Manitoba website. The Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, or FIPA, regulates how public organizations manage personal information. FIPA also provides a right of access for the public to records held by public organizations. The health information of patients is personal and sensitive. Its privacy must be protected. At the same time, patients must be able to access their personal health records should the need arise. In Manitoba, a law called the Personal Health Information Act, or FHIA, gives patients the right to access their personal health information. It also requires the individuals and organizations that keep patients' personal health records, such as healthcare practitioners, to protect the privacy of their information. FHIA gives patients the right to see and get a copy of their personal health information with limited exceptions within the time frame that FHIA requires, to name another person, such as a family member, to access their personal health information on the patient's behalf, and to request a correction to personal health information that the patient thinks is inaccurate or incomplete. You can review the resources on the resource list to learn more about the Personal Health Information Act, including Health Information Access and Privacy, a guide to the Personal Health Information Act, and the Personal Health Information Act itself. Finally, the Opticians Act and the bylaws of the Opticians of Manitoba are the final pieces of legislation that opticians should review. The bylaws of the Opticians of Manitoba are the rules that govern the internal operations of the Opticians of Manitoba. The Opticians Act is the legislation that regulates the practice of opticianry in Manitoba. Both of these documents are linked on the Opticians of Manitoba website. As you proceed through the credential recognition and registration process, it is important to continue your learning related to opticianry and the practice of opticianry in Canada and Manitoba. Some useful resources are highlighted on this slide and can be accessed through the resource list as well as on the OOM website. There are several financial supports that may be available to you as an internationally educated optician as you proceed with the registration process with the OOM. Employment Manitoba delivers a full range of employment and training services to residents of Manitoba. Internationally educated professionals in need of assistance to re-enter their professions may be eligible for financial supports to help pay for costs, such as tuition, books, and living expenses. To learn more about these supports and eligibility requirements, please visit an Employment Manitoba Centre in person. Another financial support available is the Recognition Counts program through SEED Winnipeg. Recognition Counts is a program that provides supports to skilled immigrants wishing to work in their field of expertise in Manitoba. The program offers career and financial counseling, as well as the opportunity to apply for a loan of up to $10,000 to help with the costs associated with gaining employment in a profession or trade. To learn more, visit www.recognitioncounts.ca. Finally, Manitoba Student Aid is a supplemental financial assistance program for Manitobans who do not have sufficient resources to pay for their post-secondary education on their own. They provide various types of funding on behalf of the Manitoba Student Aid Program and the Canada Student Loans and Grants Program. This funding includes repayable government student loans and non-repayable grants and bursaries. All applications are assessed to determine eligibility and financial need. To learn more, visit www.manitobastudentaid.ca. Finally, there are many valuable supports outside of the field of opticianry that may be important to access as you settle in Manitoba. These include settlement supports, language assessment and training programs, and labor market and employment supports. We've highlighted some important resources on this slide, and we would encourage you to review them. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact the Opticians of Manitoba using the contact information available on this slide. If you have more questions and would like to set up an appointment, we would be happy to meet with you. To ensure we are available, please call ahead to book an appointment. Good luck on your registration and licensing journey. This presentation has been developed with the support of Employment and Social Development Canada and Manitoba Labour and Immigration.